NBI.com. This is John's reports for the 26th. Well, the market did what it needed to do, which is holding. It was a slight up. We had a decent burst. It wasn't able to sustain that, but that made the difference in moving the extremes from negative red. So the fact that we've already matched those lows, you don't have to really revisit them. You still have NBI white leading, but hey, a lot of the damage that was there has been held in containment for the most part at this particular stage. Doesn't mean it can't still go because, unfortunately, that is still weakness. But you did have magenta kind of sliding over yellow just by accident, simply because the yellows continue to decay. But we're still caught with the orange between cyan and red, so we need some kind of burst. This helps move the green potentially back up, and that would be enough to start a transitional move. But you look at NBI red, like a one. At least it's not negative, but it's close. Right at 50K for the Nasdaq. So from an institutional standpoint, hey, that might be a bit of an attractive appeal. Broadly, though, you can still see continuation zone with the DOC here. Not a whole lot of movement. You kind of spent your short-term buyers to keep things where they're at, which is tenuous at best. So as long as there's no negative news, you might be able to hold on. There wasn't anything exciting in the economic value of things going on. Housing, the glut's going to start to continue because rates too high. People can't afford it relative to the inflation. And where's that coming from? Well, this right here. Now, that was a pretty sizable move down for oil, but really didn't make much of a difference. No. You literally need to get back to the lows and break them for real salvation and real savings to start happening. Are you going to see a deflationary environment? Well, Americans would certainly love that. It would certainly be an economic driver. Can it happen in this interest rate environment? That's going to be a tougher one. People haven't really experienced this high interest rate, high inflation type scenario. I remember it as a kid, but that's a long time ago. Uh, a few trillion less in debt, that's for sure. Uh, yeah, Euro's still excited about the prospects of war with Russia, even though you had the U.S. trying to still broker a deal. They're working on it, but it's not going anywhere. The Iranians, it's really a question of, are they in control of anything? Have they been decimated? Obviously, if the U.S. Navy is clearing mines through the Strait of Hormuz, they really don't have the ability to go after them. But I don't know that we hear all the details of everything that's taking place. It's still exciting for gold because the pent-up inflation isn't going to change. So that hasn't altered. The same thing with Bitcoin. For all the doomsayers and that they were, talking about it, this was a clean basing that we saw, and it was just a subtle improvement from the oversold and the shakeout, and it continued to move forward that way. Looking at it from a 50K standpoint, it's a whole lot of nothing. I mean, it's just narrow range. We've had the complete collapse of the Morganacci lines here to where, I mean, our effective range is tiny from that 0% going all the way up. Usually, you need these hefty distances, but now that compression, though, always breaks out. Looking at it from the 5K, here's was that pretty good sized run up, and then after the run up, you had all these positive extremes that needed to be filled, and marked them pretty clean right there. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. We just cascaded lower to fill them all back in place, and then popped from that sudden move going across, and pretty much was dead most of the rest of the day. Now we're just filled back a little bit towards the lows and gonna push back up towards the highs from a 2500 tick. This early morning run, it's very clean relative to how short that relatively is from a 5K standpoint. But by the time I was around, you had some cute little moves. You had nonsense noise in there, and then we had that nice run that came down, the sharp decline that bounced right back up. But all that was good. What's interesting is working the programming setups that will trade. Uh, confluences where you have moved from the 0% to 50 or 50 to 100 and or 100 to 0. That's where that MDI weight situation comes in. But it was pretty much just toss and turn, back and forth action. And I mean, this range was so tiny. When you look at it from a 0 to 100, uh, just not a whole lot of anything. Like roughly 14 total points between the two ranges. So you're just looking at all these little tiny ones. At the end of the day, it adds up though. When you're talking about it, it's still over 70 plus net points, but still, yeah, move like this pretty clean from a post market. So yeah, it's getting there, and from a 2500 tick to be that clear as to direction and accuracy with it, very happy with that. So now it's just a matter of defining the rule setups and yeah, all set to go with it. That's the long and the short of it for now. Anyway, a lot of construction happening around here, so a lot of noise. Anyway, these are the bells going off in the background. I don't know if you can hear them, but it's loud. Anyway, have a good one. Trade well.